Welcome back to Golden Fortune Leo, the corner of the universe where astrology doesn't wear sequins or wave incense, it simply speaks the truth. I'm your longtime researcher, equal parts philosopher, psychologist, and unapologetic stargazer. After decades of mapping planetary transits against human behavior, I've come to one radiant conclusion: Leos don't just exist in the cosmos, they perform in it. And today, my golden-hearted lions, we're here to talk about something bigger than prediction. We're talking about recognition, the moment when you finally understand that your life isn't a series of accidents, but a carefully choreographed symphony written by both destiny and your own willpower. The weekend of October 10th through the 13th, 2025, may look ordinary to the untrained eye, but cosmically, it's humming like a backstage orchestra moments before the curtain rises. There's electricity in the air, a vibration only a Leo can pick up, because your frequency is tuned to divine drama. You don't wait for miracles, you provoke them. You don't hope for opportunity, you make the universe squirm until it delivers. And after months, maybe years, of quiet rehearsal, the spotlight has found you again, not as a stroke of luck, but as a reward for showing up long after the audience left. Every heartbreak, every door slammed in your face, every night you whispered, "Maybe I should give up," was part of a secret script. The cosmos wasn't ignoring you, it was editing you. You were never being rejected, Leo, you were being refined. You see, your sign is the universe's boldest experiment in courage. How brightly can the soul burn without burning out? And if anyone's ever doubted your resilience, they've clearly never seen a Leo rebuild their castle using only leftover pride and a bit of glitter. This weekend, that castle glows again. The air feels charged, like you've walked onto the set of your own comeback story. Time doesn't flow normally, it bends. Past lessons echo into present choices. Old conversations gain new meaning. It's as if destiny itself decided to remix your life into a track that finally sounds like you. Because for Leos, fate doesn't move in straight lines, it twirls. It takes a bow. It always re-enters with flair. You may notice the universe winking at you through coincidences too precise to ignore. A text from someone who once ghosted you, but now arrives like a karmic telegram. A chance meeting that feels suspiciously timed. A creative idea that lands in your mind like lightning. These aren't random. They're rehearsed miracles, perfectly timed by a universe that's tired of you doubting your own magnetism. And speaking of magnetism, Leo, ruled by the sun, you don't wait for alignment, you command it. You are the gravitational center around which chaos eventually organizes itself. That's not ego talking, that's physics. The sun doesn't chase, it attracts. The sun doesn't beg, it burns. You were born to lead, not because you crave control, but because you naturally set the tempo of the room. And lately, whether you've noticed it or not, people have been watching how you carry yourself. They're subconsciously adjusting their rhythm to yours. If life has felt like a long audition, this weekend is your callback. The year of triumph 2025 has your name written on the marquee. You're not the understudy anymore, you're the headliner. The universe is no longer testing your patience, it's testing your readiness. Can you handle the very thing you prayed for? Can you step into your power without apologizing for it? Because let's be honest, Leo, you've never done anything halfway. You love big, you fall hard, you dream out loud, and sometimes the world mistakes that for arrogance. But you and I know better. It's not arrogance, it's awareness of your own light. Now, a word of humor, because even the stars enjoy a good laugh. Leos have a divine tendency to think of life as a movie where they're both the lead actor and the director. That's fine, as long as you remember that sometimes the universe improvises. You can't control every line in the script, but you can always deliver yours with grace. When the plot twists, don't panic, strike a better pose. Because destiny, my dear lions, has impeccable taste in leading roles. So, as we dive into this cosmic chapter, remember that none of this is coincidence. The delays, the disappointments, the detours, they were the dramatic pauses between acts. This weekend, the curtain doesn't close, it rises. The applause you've been waiting for isn't coming from the crowd, it's coming from the universe itself, standing in ovation for your persistence. Welcome to your spotlight moment, Leo. You were never meant to chase destiny. You were meant to become it. Here's where the story deepens, Leo, and I say story deliberately because you were never meant to live a spreadsheet, you were meant to live a myth. Every great lead needs a scene partner, and yours arrives not with smoke machines but with the quiet precision of a cosmic engineer, the figure I like to call the architect of alignment, Archangel Arian. He's not the courier of random lightning bolts or glittery accidents, he's the project manager of miracles, the specialist in divine logistics who calibrates timing, places the right person on the right path at the right hour, then nudges your courage so you'll actually open the door. His frequency isn't loud, it's blue, the color of clear sky after a storm, the voice that doesn't shout because it knows truth doesn't need volume. When this current moves through a Leo's life, it carries a single message written in calm ink: you have graduated from waiting rooms, it's time to build. And yet, because you are gloriously human as well as regally solar, you have a complicated romance with the miraculous. You long for it, you bargain with it, you half joke you deserve VIP seating, and then, the moment it knocks, you put it on the witness stand and cross-examine it like a prosecutor at a cosmic tribunal. That royal paradox, Lionheart and hall monitor in one body, makes you double-check the script before you roar, which is charming but occasionally exhausting. So this particular passage of time asks something beautifully uncomfortable. Receive without resistance, let a good thing be a good thing, stop frisking your blessings for hidden weapons, stop interrogating joy as if it falsified documents at the border of your life. There is a Buddhist line I keep taped to the inner wall of my mind: what you chase flees, what you allow arrives. And Leos, with your generous theatricality, sometimes forget that grace is not applause-based. Approval demands an audience, grace doesn't. It curls up like a patient cat beside your hearth and purrs without narrating its presence. And here's the cosmic gag: when you loosen your grip on the steering wheel, the road straightens. When you unknit your brow, the horizon clears. When you stop pounding on the door, the hinges stop squeaking and the latch lifts quietly. So breathe, and let this weekend ray shelve your inner library without needing you to supervise every book. The chosen ones, the souls who have learned to keep their warmth lit even when the rain forgets to stop, are being repositioned for revelation, and the miracle approaching likely won't arrive with confetti cannons. It might appear disguised as ordinary mercy, a conversation that stitches shut an old tear you thought would stay open, a choice that once required 12 pep talks and now feels effortless, or the simple recognition that peace no longer feels like a foreign language you have to translate. Now, zoom the lens out for a moment, because the weather isn't only personal, it's polar. Your mirror in this chapter is Aquarius, not a rival but a balancing counterpoint, the mind to your heart, the lightning to your hearth, the constellation that reflects your radiance back without flattery. Together you rehearse the oldest duet in the Zodiac: individuality in conversation with universality, sovereignty learning how to serve without shrinking, participation learning how to shine without performing. Aquarius carries a frequency mystics tag with the number 11. Think of it like a system update that pings your soul: upgrade available, and upgrades, as anyone who has ever ignored a software alert knows, come not just with new features but with new requirements. You cannot boot tomorrow's destiny on yesterday's settings. The universe is recoding you for broader bandwidth, for a larger addressable field of meaning. What might that look like on a Monday morning calendar? A lane in your vocation flickers on that you previously filed under too risky and now reads inevitable. A relationship stops echoing your old injuries and starts mirroring your repair. For the quiet revolutionaries in Leo cloaks the ones who Relationships always seem to arrive at the exact moment you think you've got everything else figured out, don't they, Leo? Just when your career steadies or your self-worth feels untouchable, love or something that looks suspiciously like it walks in, flips your emotional furniture, and asks you to call it divine timing. This weekend, two powerful archetypes dance into your chart, family and kindred partnership. They are not just romantic tropes, they are teachers dressed in mortal skin. When their energies collide, love turns into a classroom and the lessons are rarely multiple choice. It's the kind of course where every answer has to come from the heart, not the head. For some Leos, this chapter may bring reconciliation, the cinematic kind, complete with laughter, soft music, and the awkward realization that forgiveness was always less about the other person and more about unclenching your pride. For others, it's the courage to let go without bitterness, to understand that some souls arrive to build you, not stay with you. And yes, for a select few, family takes the literal spotlight, a new addition, a long overdue healing, or perhaps those tiny feet that have a way of rewriting priorities faster than any planetary transit ever could. But beneath all of that, there's a subtler truth: relationships are mirrors, not movie sets. Every person who walks through your story reflects a version of you, some radiant, some unhealed. When someone triggers you, that's not cosmic punishment, that's revelation. The universe doesn't send villains, it sends mirrors. The challenge, Leo, is to look straight into those reflections without flinching. When love arrives, resist the instinct to demand perfection like a royal issuing decrees. When tension appears, don't rush to assume something's broken. Growth often wears discomfort like a disguise. You, of all signs, understand that fire both warms and burns. The trick isn't avoiding the heat but learning how to refine it. Real connection doesn't stroke your ego, it stretches it. It asks you to be seen without performing, to love without controlling, to give without calculating the return. That's not weakness, that's emotional nobility. That's Leo in its highest octave, the lion who roars not to dominate but to awaken the jungle around it. Now, let's shift from love's philosophy to tarot's psychology, where symbolism meets science. The Seven of Swords arrives first, a card many misunderstand as deceit, but in your spread, it's self-doubt dressed in strategy. It's that clever internal voice whispering, "Don't celebrate yet, it might not last." You know that voice. It's the cautious one that sneaks in right after a victory, the skeptic that insists on reading the fine print before joy can sign the contract. The card asks you to recognize when you become your own saboteur. Leo pride can be sneaky, sometimes it hides insecurity beneath a lab coat labeled realism. But let's be honest, realism without faith is just pessimism in professional attire. Then comes strength, your ruling archetype and perhaps the truest expression of your sign. Not the kind that flexes muscle, but the kind that controls breath when panic tries to hijack it. True power doesn't roar, it regulates. It's the courage to stay soft when life tempts you to harden. For years you've been practicing this quiet mastery, learning that control is not dominance and confidence is not denial. This weekend, that understanding matures. You'll feel it not as a dramatic revelation but as a calm clarity that says, "I've survived too much to be rattled by shadows." Next steps into the frame the King of Pentacles, the archetype of stewardship. He doesn't reward ego, he rewards consistency. His wealth isn't flamboyant, it's rooted. When this energy shows up, the universe is basically handing you the keys and saying, "I trust you with abundance now." But, as any researcher of human behavior will tell you, trust is never a one-way contract. The condition is stewardship, not possession. Don't hoard what flows through you. Circulate your blessings like sunlight, steady, generous, and life-giving. If the Seven of Swords asked you to stop sabotaging, and strength asked you to center yourself, the King of Pentacles now asks you to stay responsible when the harvest finally arrives. And just when you're starting to feel comfortably grounded, the Eight of Wands bursts onto the stage like a triple espresso shot from the cosmos. Suddenly, everything that's been crawling forward decides to sprint. Messages, invitations, opportunities. Your inbox becomes a metaphor for destiny trying to get your attention. Don't panic when the tempo increases. This is divine acceleration, not chaos. You've spent months wondering why nothing was moving. The truth? The universe wasn't ignoring you, it was buffering. Now the download is ready, and it's fast. Keep your footing while the world catches up to your readiness. The Two of Cups follows a card of soul recognition, the emotional exhale after a long inhale. For those craving connection, this is the universe whispering, closer. For those already in partnership, it signals depth, the transition from butterflies to grounding, from adrenaline to assurance. It's love that stops auditioning for security and starts living from it. This connection isn't about fireworks, it's about firelight, the steady glow that warms without burning. And then, closing the sequence, the Eight of Pentacles appears, the craftsman of destiny. This is the tarot's quiet sermon on devotion. It reminds you that miracles aren't maintenance-free. You can't outsource care. The dream you've manifested now requires tending, effort, repetition, and that underrated art of showing up even when you'd rather rest on reputation. This card is a spiritual to-do list wrapped in patience. It says, keep practicing, keep refining, keep earning alignment through consistency. Because in the daily rituals of attention, writing, working, loving, forgiving, you become the miracle itself. Now, as someone who's studied both astrology and psychology for longer than I care to admit, I can tell you this: the entire spread is a behavioral map. The Seven of Swords is your inner critic, strength your emotional regulation, the King of Pentacles your financial and moral discipline, the Eight of Wands your responsiveness to opportunity, the Two of Cups your capacity for empathy, and the Eight of Pentacles your follow-through. The cards don't predict your future, they describe your character's evolution. The universe isn't grading you, it's coaching you. And because humor is the philosopher's way of staying sane, let's add a wink here. Yes, the universe has a sense of irony. It gives you patience by making you wait, courage by scaring you half to death, and abundance right after you've balanced your budget so tightly that a latte feels like rebellion. That's cosmic comedy at its finest. But if you've lived long enough, you start to see the pattern. Life doesn't test you to humiliate you, it trains you for precision. It wants to see if you can handle joy with the same grace you've handled pain. So, Leo, as you move through this beautifully complicated weekend, remember this: love is not a prize, it's a practice. Success is not a windfall, it's a rhythm. And miracles are not interruptions of nature, they're reminders of how natural alignment feels when you finally stop resisting it. The heart you've spent years protecting is not fragile, it's refined. Every scar you carry is proof that you've lived with intensity and still chosen softness. And that, more than any planetary aspect or tarot combination, is the definition of strength. When Monday arrives and you look back on these days, you might realize nothing huge happened, no trumpets, no cinematic confessions. And yet, something will feel undeniably different. The air will be lighter, the colors a little more saturated, your reflection a touch more forgiving. That's how transformation sneaks in, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, consistent act of staying open. So don't wait for the applause, Leo. You're already in the performance. The stage lights are warm, the audience is unseen, and the universe is humming your cue. Step forward, take a breath, and deliver your line with the authority of someone who finally understands that love, work, and destiny were never separate subjects. They were always the same exam, and you, my friend, have been studying all along. Even miracles, Leo, come with their own shadows. Beneath every triumph lives a faint echo of old fears, the ancient worry that if you relax for even a moment, something precious might slip away. The fear of being forgotten, of losing momentum, of watching the good things fade just when you start to trust them. It's the emotional hangover of a soul that's had to earn everything the hard way. Yet here's the paradox that only experience can teach: those same fears are the secret architects of your compassion. They made you discerning enough to spot sincerity in a world full of performances. They taught you to read between the lines of people's intentions, to sense the tremor of truth in a handshake, and to see love not as spectacle but as quiet consistency. In other words, your pain gave you X-ray vision. So when your blessings arrive, and they will, don't ruin them with over-analysis. Don't run the cosmic gift through the scanner of past disappointment. Don't measure it against the people who couldn't see your worth. Accept it for what it is, the universe's acknowledgement that your endurance has finally matured into grace. Faith, after all, isn't the naive insistence that everything will work out, it's the intelligent trust that even if it doesn't look like your plan, it's still part of a larger order that knows what it's doing. The universe doesn't pay out to cynics, it collaborates with the courageous. And when that familiar whisper of doubt returns, as it always does, laugh. Humor, my dear Leo, is the soul's most refined form of exhalation. It's your way of saying, I see the absurdity, and I choose joy anyway. Laughter is your sacred weapon. It turns fear into performance art and pain into something you can monologue about over dinner. Even the fiercest lion, after battle, knows how to stretch in the sunlight and purr. That's not arrogance, that's wisdom wearing confidence like silk. The world may misunderstand your roar, but you, Leo, understand that laughter is your version of enlightenment. It says, I've seen the storm, and I'm still radiant. By the end of this cosmic narrative, the world and the page of Pentacles rise like closing curtains on a play that took years to write. Together they form the grand finale, the standing ovation that signals not an ending but a revelation. You're not finishing a story, you're graduating from it. You're stepping out of an era not because it failed but because it succeeded in sculpting you into someone who can finally hold abundance without gripping it. You've shed the skin of proving and replaced it with the serenity of being. This weekend's message couldn't be clearer: your success, whether emotional, financial, or spiritual, is not coincidence. It's the mathematical outcome of alignment, effort multiplied by faith, consistency squared by authenticity. You've stopped performing for approval and started collaborating with the divine. There's a distinct difference between chasing applause and listening to purpose. The first drains you, the second restores you. And if you need one last reminder from a researcher who has spent a lifetime studying both planetary motion and human nature, remember this: everything you see, every object, every relationship, every triumph is temporary choreography. Matter is just energy slowed down enough to be perceived. Atoms dance, forms shift, stories dissolve. What we call reality is simply consciousness wearing costumes for a limited engagement. And you, Leo, are one of its finest creations, a constellation disguised as a person. The trick isn't to hold on to the scene, it's to keep remembering that you were always the light behind it. So when change comes, and it will, don't mourn it. Bless it. Endings aren't failures, they're revisions. The cosmos edits relentlessly, not to erase you but to keep the story consistent with your new magnitude. Each transformation is a celestial rewrite, ensuring that your next act has space for the version of you that's already outgrown yesterday's plot. When the weekend closes and the stars settle into their calm orbits, take a quiet walk if you can. Pay attention to the stillness between sounds, to the way even the streetlights seem to shimmer differently. That's not imagination, that's alignment. The universe, responsive as always, is mirroring back your new frequency. Every time you choose faith over fear, generosity over defensiveness, it rearranges itself in your favor. The Year of Triumph 2025 isn't some poetic tagline, it's a living vibration, a pulse moving through your days, reminding you that endurance and humility are the twin engines of transformation. You're no longer waiting for a miracle, Leo. You've become one. The angel you prayed for has taken residence in your choices, your discipline, your laughter. Every time you extend kindness when it isn't deserved, you channel divinity. Every time you believe in beauty after heartbreak, you're performing alchemy. So straighten that crown not as a costume of pride, but as a quiet acknowledgement of survival. Let it be the gesture that says, I've seen endings, and I've seen renewals, and both were necessary. Walk into the world with that signature Leo confidence, elegant, humorous, and unbothered. Flirt with life again. Buy yourself the flowers, take the trip, start the project. Don't wait for a sign, be the sign. You've earned this peace, not through perfection but through persistence. And before you go, take this as your closing note from Golden Fortune Leo, the place where astrology meets reflection and humor meets truth. Share this message with someone who might still be learning how to let their own light back in. Because we don't predict the future here, we reveal the masterpiece that was already written in your courage. So if this message resonated, if you felt a flicker of recognition somewhere in your chest, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Not for vanity's sake, but to join a constellation of souls who are collectively remembering their radiance. The truth, dear Leo, is simple yet profound. This isn't coincidence. You were meant for this. And the more you live like you believe it, the more the universe nods in agreement. Now go enjoy your kingdom, not as a ruler desperate to control it, but as a being wise enough to bask in it. After all, the sun doesn't chase admiration. It shines because it's its nature. So shine, Leo. Shine, and let the world remember what light feels like.